Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project. We're going to do things a bit differently today. I've got my good friend Hayley Poe, who's former Miss Earth USA, and she's going to be taking the reins today and asking me some questions and doing the interview. We did trial being the other way around with the camera setup, but we agreed that it just didn't quite look right. But yeah, she's going to interview me because over the last year or so, I've told Hayley this, we sort of tripled our audience worldwide. And I realized there's a lot of people, and I think, Hayley, you said this about your mum, which really made me think, hang on, maybe I need to do something about this. You said, your mum said, is the Pageant Project Adrian? And I
Yes.
realized that people might not realize that I am the Pageant Project and the Pageant Project is me. Uh, some people think I'm like the pageant planet or like I have a giant team. I don't. It literally is just me. And then people such as Hayley and, Morgan and Peyton who come on for the podcast. But I realize I probably need to do a bit better of a job explaining that because I don't really talk about myself, because I started in this industry, as Hayley well knows, as an interviewer. And one of the things I believe is if I'm interviewing someone and I'm doing the talking, something's gone horrifically wrong. If I'm interviewing someone, I ask a question, then I should shut up and let the person be interesting. It's not my place to talk about my life. So I needed someone to ask me questions. And Hayley, well, I've asked Hayley and she very graciously said yes. Now, this morning, she said she didn't have a list of questions. And now she's saying she does have a list of questions. So I'm slightly worried. But Hayley, thank you for doing this. And yeah, take it whichever direction you want to go. I'm looking forward to this.
Of course. I think this is so funny too, because the first time I met you, you were interviewing me. So I think it's very fitting that I get to interview you. I'm also pursuing a master's degree in journalism. So this is really good practice for me. So I appreciate it. I was going to just hop on here and yap because we do a lot of that. And then I realized that we kind of get going in all different pageants and tangents, hence the name of the podcast, and that we would be here for 5 hours if I did not have a list ready. So I do have a list of questions for you. And the first question on that list, I know that you're based out of Sydney, Australia. Have you always lived there?
Almost always. So born and raised here. For a period of time, I moved interstate up to what's ironically for pageants, it's called Queensland. I should have stayed there. But Queensland, I liken it to your guys' Florida.
Yeah.
The weather up there, it's like almost always the exact same temperature now. It's like 28 Celsius. I don't know what they call it, like 80, 85 Fahrenheit for you guys. And it's always kind of that warm and a bit humid. And up there, if it gets below 80 or 70 degrees, everyone's like, oh my God, it's so freezing. They're very fragile up there. But everyone up there has a tan. Everyone up there is always wearing bikinis. Yeah, so I lived up there for a bit, but Sydney, Australia, I like it. I will say that.
Yeah. So what are your goals for 2026?
In general, I've been looking at doing an AI startup for some time, and I've been spending a lot of time working out what form I want that to take. So for people watching or listening, if you don't know, I've been working a lot with AI. And I half jokingly say the reason I work so well with AI is because my brain is like a robot. Take that whichever way you will. I shared with you on our last call that some of the plans I have for the Pageant Project, one of them is to be known as the place to go for high performance coaching for pageant girls. That comes from my sports coaching background, being a tennis coach. The idea that, you're not just there to win. I mean, we're competitive, but you also want to get the most out of yourself. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, Hayley, where it's like this coaching is like it's not enough for me. It's like it's not pushing me enough, and I feel like I'm being held back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the worst feeling when you're someone who's really competitive and you're intelligent, you're ambitious, you're hungry, and you want someone who will be there with you and push you when you need to be pushed, but also support you when you need to be supported. And frankly, I don't think that exists in pageantry. I think far too many pageant coaches are just doing it because they won a title 5 million years ago. That's really no longer relevant. They have no actual skills other than that credential from 5 million years ago. And I keep telling people, knowing how to coach is not a given. You might have won your title. You might know your stuff. given. But do you know how to teach? Do you know how to coach? Because all of us, I think, can think of horrific teachers when we were in school or when we were in college, if we went there. But then also you remember the really, really good teachers. I remember my 6th grade teacher. I loved him. Everyone thought he was strict, but he had my respect because he ran a tight ship. He knew what he was doing, and I respected that. So knowing how to coach, knowing how to teach, but going back. So I want to do more coaching. I may bring some other people in. I'm building out some courses so people can access them from anywhere in the world. And we're doing weekly mock interviews at a very low price. It's like $20 a session, or it's $20 a month. And then you can do 4 or 5 sessions. And the whole point is to give you guys a chance to practice under semi-realistic conditions rather than charging you $200 per hour. You talk to me and I say, yeah, that was good. See ya. And I'm not exaggerating. When it's really scary to me when I work with some of these Miss USA state title holders. So girls, you think at the very top of their game, or Miss America, Miss Volunteer America, and they say to me, "This is the first time I've ever got real feedback."
Mm-hmm.
That to me that's shocking. I don't know how you receive that. Like I hear it's like flattering to me, but my brain goes, "Hang on, you've worked with so and so, so and so, and so and so." And these people are always claiming everyone as their, oh, look, my client, this is my client. And you're telling me those people never gave you any feedback other than she needs more personality or be yourself. And then I just want to, thump my head against a brick wall to just get those inane, useless platitudes out. But I really want to focus on that. I love helping other people. That's been my jam my entire life. I get more from helping others to shine rather than shining myself, which I think is why I love interviewing people, because I get to put you front and center rather than talking about me all the time. Then I want to focus on the AI and start doing some courses, maybe write a book in that sector because I have thoughts on that. And I want to help solopreneurs, non-geek people, I say normal people, but maybe solopreneurs and business owners, teach them how to use AI.
Yeah.
Because it's so overwhelming now. It used to just be Chat GPT. Now every day there's 5,000 different apps. And I just want to cut through that a little bit. So be a coach in that area, be a source of education in that area. Then maybe this is a 2026 thing, cycle back to pageant stuff. And there are some plans to, let's say, build an online platform and a community around the pageant industry that may displace some fairly big names. I won't go into details here because I don't want to give it away. I told you about them, and I told you who I want to take out because that's the way I think. But if I was to sum it up, Haley, I would say I'm always thinking and strategizing how do I want the pageant community to look? Not that I have that fixed vision, but I believe that the industry should put the women first.
Yes.
And I think it's gotten it wrong, very demonstrably so, until maybe more recently. But we still saw the mishaps at Miss Universe, on and on and on. And I still think there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And I want to do my part to make sure that happens, because I've had enough conversations with people such as yourself to know that even though there are things that you can't talk about, that someone has to talk about because it's wrong. And so the one thing I can say is whatever I do, it will be in pageantry, it will be towards that end goal of, I think pageantry can be an amazing stepping stone, an amazing way to network, an amazing way to build skills, branding, interview, got it. But we get it wrong sometimes. And normally it's because of giant egos getting in the way and drama and things like that. But I think it always comes down to some people just have giant egos and they want to control you guys. And I think if you have that in the industry, it's never going to survive, let alone thrive. So those are the broad strokes. Those are the goals for 2026.
We love to see it. I am really interested in the fact that you put women first in this industry, because I find that a lot of people go into pageantry with the goal of, I want to build this, or I want to direct, or I want to do this. And it's very much about what they plan to achieve, and it's not what they're doing for other people. And this is an industry that's designed to uplift other people. So we definitely need more of that. Can you tell me a little bit about your educational background? Size, because it's really long. I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's not really long. I feel like I'm showing off when I talk
Well,
about it. When when I was so here in Australia, we have primary school. That's up to year 6 or about 12, right? 12 years old. I went to a very competitive high school, which is funny because my 11-year-old nephew just yesterday sat a scholarship exam to enter the same school that I'm in. My name's on the board. But I really did not like my time in high school because it's in the middle of the city and it's a concrete jungle. My primary school was beautiful, large green grounds. You could go outside, run around, and be a kid. And then suddenly I have to go into the city. It's dingy. There's a lot of people. It's all concrete jungle. The buildings are ugly. There's so many people crammed into a small space. And I did fine, but I didn't enjoy it. I ended up getting in what's called our higher school certificate, our leaving exam, 99.55. That's a percentile, so in the top 0.45%. But I hated it. I think that's the thing that people don't understand. It's like, yeah, you can do well. It doesn't mean you enjoy it. And I think that was the beginning of the end for me in terms of enjoying formal education, because then I went to university. There was no choice in that. It really was assumed for myself that it's not, are you going to go to universities? Which one are you going to? And also, given the school that I was in and the academic sort of standards, it was like, oh, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer. Or failing that, you're going to be a dentist because you didn't get enough marks to be a doctor. And I was like, you know what? I might get the marks to be a doctor and you're all becoming doctors. I don't want to be a doctor. And this is weird coming from a family of doctors. My dad's a doctor, my mum's a doctor, my brother's a doctor. I was like, nah. And so I did aeronautical engineering and computer science. And the reason I did that, Haley, was because I wanted to fly planes. Of course, no one told me that being an aeronautical engineer, you design the plane, you don't fly it. They didn't tell me that until my second year. At which point I went, you know what, that's crap. I don't want to design a plane, I want to fly it. So I left the aeronautical engineering part of it, finished the computer science part of it, which funnily enough, the only part of that which I enjoyed was a final year project because we were cut loose. We got to design basically our own project, and it was in AI. And I really enjoyed that. It was the only thing that I really enjoyed in tertiary education, was because I got to discover things and teach myself. It wasn't me sitting in a room and you telling me n-dimensional calculus is important or flow mechanics. It's like, you never taught me why. Why do I want to know this? There are 3 dimensions. That's the education part of it. And then aside from that, I have qualifications to coach tennis, teach violin. Not that I've ever done that, and you should never ask me to do that because it's been a while since I picked it up. I also have a qualification in music business management because I thought at one point I wanted to represent musicians and get good contracts for them with recording companies and things like that. And I'm sure there's other things I've forgotten about too, but it's a bit all over the place, suffice to say.
Yeah. So how did you begin interviewing pageant queens?
Well, when I was coaching I was a head tennis coach at an all-girls school, and I've told this story a few times before, so I'll give the shorter version. I saw some of the issues that young women were beginning to have, especially around mental health and self-harm. And me being me, it wasn't, oh, that's terrible, stop doing that. It's like, well, what's causing that? And I thought, okay, and then how can I address it? And the solution I came up with is, well, if I do interviews with women from the community who've achieved amazing things, then these young women will have someone to look up to. And so that should help lift them up, give them inspiration, aspiration. And so I thought, okay, let's do that. I've always enjoyed talking with other people and interviewing. So that was a given, but this was the first time I'd actually done it. And so the first interview I did was with a personal trainer, a local personal trainer. We went to a park. This was in the day and age when you had to actually have video cameras, not a phone. And I set up 3 video cameras in the middle of a park, sunny day outside, and I did my first interview. And I think the second or third person I interviewed happened to be a pageant contestant. And I had no idea about pageants. This is a photo that I sent you where I stood like a wooden board.
Yeah.
That was my first ever pageant interview, and it is cringe-worthy. It's horrific.
He
but that's
looks
why
so uncomfy, guys. So uncomfy.
Yeah. I look like I'm about to be shot. And she's all glammed up and Miss Universe ready, and I'm here like,
Yep.
didn't take photos of growing up.
Uh-huh.
Now everyone's like, and I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Anyway, that was so bad because I knew so little about pageants. I didn't know there was more than one. I'm like, why do you need more than one? And then also, I didn't know you guys couldn't swear. So my original 7th question, my final 10 questions was, what's your favorite curse word? And I remember Tasha was sat there she wouldn't answer the question. She's literally doing this. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why can't, because I'm Australian. So heads up, I swear, as you well know. And she's like, we can't answer. And then, oh, you can't answer swear questions. Oh, okay. So that was how I got into pageants. I had no idea about it. Tasha, the first girl, she had a fundraiser. I went along to it. I was like, oh, you know what? This is kind of cool. And then at the pageant fundraiser were other pageant girls. And as happens, you sat next to one of them and they go, oh, what do you do? How do you know Tasha? Oh, I interviewed her. Oh, you do interviews. And then every pageant girl wants a chance to be the spotlight. And so before I knew it, it was like, oh, you interviewed her. Can you interview me? Can you interview me? And then it started in Australia. Then I thought, oh, I've run out of Australians. Let's go to the UK, right? Where there's a bigger audience, but still not that big. And then finally it went to the US. But if I'm completely honest with you, I did it deliberately that way because I wanted to feel like I had earned my stripes before I hit the United States, because for me, United States is the mecca of pageantry. And I mean that. I know you might say like a Venezuela or Philippines are bigger pageant powerhouses. I don't pay any credence to these labels of pageant powerhouses because I know who I want to work with, the type of contestants I want to work with, and they're in America. They ain't in Latin America, they ain't in the Philippines. I know I'm stereotyping, but I've told you before, the reason I don't go into those countries is because my version of pageantry, or what I think it can be, is very different to what the culture wants there. But that's how it started. So it started in Australia for probably about the first 50 interviews, then started going internationally to now the point where I talk to you guys with your funny accents more so than I talk to Australians.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
How many pageant interviews have you done so far, would you say?
I genuinely have lost count. On the Pageant Project itself, we're over 350 now. But I did other interviews under another business name before that. And then I've done other interviews for things like books. There's also at least 100 podcast episodes before. So if you count those, I'd say we're north of 500 by now.
Yeah.
Easily.
That's a lot.
I know. You could listen to one a day and you'd never listen to the same one for more than a year.
That's true.
And no, I don't remember most of them.
That's fair. That's a lot. So what was it about American pageantry that made you decide to focus on delegates from here?
I get excited by talking to women who are intelligent, ambitious, and confident and have goals, and they're not afraid to say it, yet they're humble enough to know they're not perfect. That's in America. Okay. And I say that, and I'm not just casting stereotypes, although I'm aware it's a stereotype, but having worked a lot with the Aussie girls and the girls from the UK, you guys take pageantry more seriously to the point where you do the coaching, you compete for years, and you look at yourself getting better and better and better. It's not very often that you just do it one-off on a whim and you do really, really well, right? It's a whole process, and you can see young women who speak really, really well. And I say that because when I do an interview, as you well know, it's often over an hour. You can't fake an hour long. Like if your pageant interview, your idea of pageant interview is every question you begin with, well, as a title holder or as a role model, that won't work in the sort of interviews that I do. And I found that when I had conversations with the American girls on the whole, I could expect much more of an interesting conversation, one that I would enjoy, not one that I felt like I just had to do. Whereas sometimes in Australia or the UK, what I was finding that a lot of girls were just doing the pageant because they were interested in it. They'd never done one before and they'd had no training. And it's not to say that I think they're less worthy or anything like that. It's just like the conversation wasn't that interesting because they hadn't done as much. Whereas you guys, by and large, you're getting your education, you've got platforms, you're doing interviews, you have advocacies. By and large, we all have performative things, that we won't talk about that, or maybe we will later on. I don't know. But for what I do, which is I want a substantive conversation, it was always going to be America. And 100% I've been proven right. Not to say that everyone I interviewed from America is better than everyone I've interviewed from Australia. And better is a horrible term to use, but you understand. It's you guys, when you talk, you can just tell someone's had the training, even if it's informal training. But you guys have been on a self-improvement journey, and that's something that I can really relate to. I will say a lot of Australians and the Brits, they look at your guys, Americans, as a general rule, the confidence, and they sometimes think you guys are arrogant. But I've always liked that sort of on the entrepreneurial spirit. That part of what you guys do has always, I felt more like that than sometimes Australian, because sometimes in Australia we talk people down, we call it tall poppy syndrome. Whereas in America, I feel like as long as you work hard enough and you want it bad enough, you can find a way. And if you can't find a way, you make a way. And I like that because that's really the entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't really exist, at least from my experience, to the same extent in Australia or the UK. So I have my friends in Australia and the UK. I love them to bits. But for me, I'm very happy working with the American girls, the American systems. Not to say that it's perfect, but as I said to you, I felt like I needed to earn my stripes. So I didn't want to go into Texas, right, and have, I had no idea what I'm talking about. What's your favorite curse word? I'm like, no, because someone would probably shoot me, maybe literally if I was over there. So that's I don't even remember the question, Haley. So, well done. I've given you an answer. I don't know to what, but I've given you an answer.
No, I think that's what we definitely look for in American pageant contestants too, is you're willing to talk about the work and you can back up what you're saying too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of all of the interviews that you've done, what is the most important thing you've learned all successful pageant contestants have in common?
Self-awareness.
Okay.
I've had a lot of time to think about this. You can say, oh, they got a certain look. They're over 5'10". They're blonde. No. Self-awareness. You need to know what you bring to the table, and you need to know what you're good at, what you suck at, and whether you want to work on what you suck at. You need to surround yourself with people who are willing to give you constructive criticism, not just mindless yes people. And you also need to have a good awareness as to where pageantry fits. It's not the answer to world peace. On the other hand, it's not a horrific industry that exploits people. You can point to examples, and I'm sure you can find examples, and I'd agree with you. I know examples myself, but isolated examples it's not the same as an eternal truth. And so having the self-awareness about yourself, self-awareness about other people, but also self-awareness as to the part that pageantry can realistically play in your life, and also knowing what you want your life's journey to look like. Of course it can change, but where do I want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years? Does pageantry fit into that? And sometimes the answer is now it does, or sometimes the answer is not right now, but in a year's time from now it will. And that system is the one that will fit it best. Yeah. That's what I find is, like, regardless of taking the title home, because that can be an absolute crapshoot, to put it politely. But in order to take from pageantry something that you find actually worthwhile, because let's face it, it's expensive, right? It's not cheap. And it takes a lot of time and energy, as you well know, right? More so probably than 99% of people. To make it worthwhile, you need to know why you're doing it. But all of that comes to the self-awareness. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, and you've never had those moments where you sit by yourself and you go, you know what? I'm not happy. Why? All right, what am I going to do about it? Okay, let's do this and let's move forward. This is a plan. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I want to win. But if I don't win, I'm going to take X, Y, Z. I want to meet these people. We're doing that pageant because of this. Self-awareness is everything. I can't work with you if you don't have the self-awareness. I could take your money, but I literally turned someone away the other day and said, I can't work with your daughter. I'm not the right person. And so if you were to ask me one thing, it would be that self-awareness, because the lack of it is painful to see. When you just see someone who just keeps talking about herself all the time and keeps trying to sell everyone on pageants, even though it's clear that they don't want to do it, or they've done their time and they don't want to do it anymore. She just keeps going on and on and on. It's because of the lack of self-awareness. So that would be my final answer.
So you've said that you didn't know anything about pageants when you interviewed your first pageant queen. When you started talking to at least a few of us, right? What were the most surprising things that you encountered about the pageant industry right away, other than the fact that we can't swear?
This will sound horrible, but take it for what it's worth. I was surprised that some of you were intelligent. Some of you could actually answer questions and have formulated thoughts and weren't just, I literally, when I started interviewing, the thing I said was, I'm never going to interview a model because I have nothing to say. They're all shallow. And now a lot of my best friends, if they're not models, they model on the side. So, and I know that sounds horrible, but what I will say is the way I like to make sure that my beliefs are accurate is by putting them to the test. So I thought, that's one of the reasons I started interviewing. I was like, before I make up my mind about pageant girls, maybe I should talk to a few of them. After I talk to a few of them, then maybe my opinions will have a bit more legitimacy. And then after talking to over 500 of them, I now believe anyway that my thoughts probably have some valid reasons. I'm sure some people disagree with me, but I've learned a lot about pageant girls, and a lot of it will surprise people who are outside of the industry. The ones that you meet who really, they're go-getters. They want it all, and they can have it all. Maybe not all at the same time, but they have plans. They have education. They're out to serve someone other than themselves. They have goals. They're not afraid to share those goals when the time is right. And they believe in themselves. They back in themselves. And yes, they might look good on a stage, but they're also nice people to be around. They uplift others. They don't tear them down. Not everyone is like that, but I wouldn't have believed if you told me that there was an industry that attracted women like that. I don't think I would have believed you. So I think that was the biggest surprise.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are really affected by the stereotypes around pageant queens. And my response is always, you should go talk to one, or wait until you meet someone who's competed before, or you're friends with a girl who finally decides to compete in a pageant. And you see how transformative it is for young women. So I love that you got to have that experience. What is something you think the pageant industry is too attached to that you would like to see replaced with something else or done away with altogether?
Hot picks. Replace it with nothing.
Just gone.
Do you want me to elaborate on that one?
I mean, I totally understand why they're unhealthy and we shouldn't be doing this, but I'll let you take the mic on that one.
All right. So comparison is a thief of joy. We all know this. And social media is geared for comparison. And to be completely clear, fan pages can do whatever they want. It's not for me to say you shouldn't do this, you can't do this. But here's the thing. And I've given you this example before, I was a tennis coach, right? If you pick Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic or Sinner or Serena Williams to win the next US Open, that's fine. You can tag them. They ain't resharing your story. Why? Because they're dialed in. They're zeroed in. They're not going to allow some random person who knows nothing and sitting in their underwear on a couch, 50 pounds overweight, eating Cheetos, somehow declares themselves to be a tennis expert, right? So by the same token, if you're really dialed in as a pageant contestant, why are you giving heed to what a nobody, and I use that word, I know it's a bit unkind, but that's what I mean in terms of they know nothing about you. They don't know you. They don't know the other women. They don't know what it's like to compete in a pageant. They don't know your advocacy. All they've seen is a headshot. And somehow they're going to make it out that they know more about you because of the 2 paragraphs that you wrote under your Instagram profile whilst all your competitors use ChatGPT to do it. That's why you guys can do pageant hot picks, but I'm asking contestants to not share it, not engage with it. It's noise, it's distraction, it's not good for you. And if we talk about mental health in the pageant industry, there is no way that you can convince me, no matter what you say, that hot picks are good for mental health. Because if you're not picked, a lot of girls feel upset because they could be doing really good work and they feel no one is seeing it. On the other hand, someone could be doing absolutely no work. They're doing performative advocacy and they're getting all the hot picks. And they're like, well, why am I doing all this work then? You told me it was about the work and you're not noticing it. And that can be extremely deflating. On the other hand, if it goes to your head and you think you can walk on water, that's also not good, right? So if it's not good for the women competing, which is my whole central hypothesis, I'm not doing it. It's not good for you guys. Don't do it. If you're listening to this and you're a pageant fan page, I encourage you to do something else. Do something more meaningful, more substantive.
Yeah.
But if you're a pageant contestant, don't share it. Don't engage with it. Mute, block, don't respond to it. Leave it alone. It's like a disease. Don't touch it. You touch it, you get it, you spread it around to everyone else. But I will say, if pageant fan pages want to do something, oh, well, we do hot picks that gets engagement, fine. Find something productive that gets engagement. There's a reason I do interviews that go over an hour long. It takes more work than what you're doing, right? But if you really are a fan of the women competing, you'll do that. If you are only in it for your own gain to get likes and views, well, now I know where you're coming from, and then I don't have a conversation for you. So I would say hot picks, absolutely, number one.
For any parents, contestants, directors watching this right now, I also just want to let you know that many placements in hot picks are paid for. So when you're seeing that come through, sometimes it's a fan opinion, sometimes it's not. I've had accounts DM me and say, hey, you're my favorite to win, and then post somebody else because the placement was paid for. So there's a lot of fan behavior, and then there's a lot of stuff that is just noise, and we just ignore it because it doesn't matter. It's not relevant.
This comes back to what I was saying about the self-awareness, because you're always sort of, I think you want to take everything with a bit of a grain of salt in this day and age. Because, for example, you might see some pageant magazine covers, right? And you see one of your contestants, one of your competitors appear on the cover, and you think, oh my God, she must have been, you think of it like the cover of Time, like, oh, she must have done this, and she's so famous now. And then literally the next post you see, if you'd like to appear on the cover,
right,
it's $200. It's look, now it's the same as paying for a chance to walk in a, New York Fashion Week, or all this sort of stuff. The thing is, I don't have any problem with it. But what I do say is that you need to be aware of it, and you need to stop claiming false credit as well. Yeah. So don't forget, and here's the one that will really get me into trouble. I've published many books, and there are a lot of women out there saying that they're published children's book authors, and they are. But how many copies have you sold? Right. There's a difference between I published a book and I'm a best-selling author and I'm the next J.K. Rowling, right? They're not the same. And so this is why I said don't do the comparison thing, Haley, because you should know what you're doing, why you're doing it, self-awareness, and just measure yourself against, am I better than I was yesterday, right? Because you never really know what is genuine and sometimes what's like smoke and mirrors. So you might see someone on a magazine cover, but they paid for it. You might see someone walking in a fashion week show, but they paid for it, right? And again, I got no problem with it as long as you're very clear that, oh, here's probably what happened behind the scenes, and what they're doing is no reflection on me. So I think that's hugely important. So whether it's hot, I mean, that's just stupid, right? I mean, because then you're getting to the point of you're pretty much lying. You're saying, oh, you're my favorite, but then you didn't pick me. I'm confused.
It can be very confusing, and that's why I agree with you. We shouldn't even be paying any attention to this.
No, I mean, do you want to be dialed in or not? I mean, if hot picks actually move the dial, then I'm hoping to God that your pageant has told you that. If it's not going to move the dial, why would you engage with it? Don't you have anything better to do? Go practice your walk, practice your interview. Go and feed some ducks. Do anything other than doom scrolling on social media and talking yourself out of it. No one gets on social media, Haley, and feels better about themselves.
No.
It's very rare, right? Sometimes you have a nice interaction, but it's designed for comparison. It literally is designed for that. And I got to say, like, young women on the whole are more, they're not the only ones susceptible to it, but you guys, and I know this from working with women for like most of my life now, you treat yourselves very unkindly, and women tend to do the one-downsmanship. Men do the one-upmanship, right? Like, oh, we're on the tennis court. You think you can hit a bigger ball? Like, I can hit a better one. Oh, no, you think you're so good? I can do it better than you. Or yeah. Because that's how men speak, right? With one monosyllables. Women are like, oh no, you're prettier than me. I could never do. Oh no, you're so smart. You can do that. I could never do it. And yet down, 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 down. And so it's like, don't get on social media, because you'll look at that, what someone is claiming to have done. You go, oh, what's the point in trying?
Yeah.
She's in New York Fashion Week. She's on this billboard. She's on that cover. She's a published children's author. She's got a 501c3. She raised $10,000. She's a model for this. She's at Sherry Hill, this, the Atlanta Mart for that. And like, oh, no point trying. Did you know she's as deeply insecure as you are? No. So, yeah, social media is a whole separate thing.
So I know that you have a pilot's license, and you told me before that you've thrown, I think, more than one pageant queen out of a plane. Can you tell me about those experiences?
To be clear, I don't have a pilot's license. I have flown a few times. Getting a pilot's license is something I would like to do, talking about 2026 plans, but it needs dedication, because they don't just want anyone flying around in the skies. I have thrown former Miss Universe Great Britain out of a plane. Not literally, but close enough. I deeply regret that to this day, because she wanted to. She came over to Australia, and she was like, oh, I want to do a skydive. And I'd done skydives before, and to me, I just think of skydives as kind of stupid. Not because they're stupid, but because I don't understand why people get so scared about them. Because to me, it's like, remember who I'm talking to now, so, as you like to say. But to me, you know that you're going to land safely. So there's no point being afraid. And if you didn't land safely, you don't have time to worry about it, because your bum would go through your brain and it's done. It's the same attitude I have with roller coasters. People are like, yeah. And I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Just enjoy the ride and shut up. So, you see the roller coaster photos and everyone else is like, and I'm like, I'm enjoying it, by the way. I have the RBF, the resting, what face.
Yes.
But she wanted to jump out of the plane, skydive. I'm like, okay, fine. I've done it before. Didn't really do anything for me, but sure. And I made the mistake of saying, because she was quite insecure, so I made the mistake of saying, well, if you want someone to go with you, if there's any last minute availabilities, I'll go along with you, thinking that there wouldn't be a last minute availability, because normally these things are booked months in advance. Of course, as it turns out, we get there, open my big mouth, there happens to be one vacant seat. Next thing I know, I'm on the plane. I didn't like that. I didn't want to jump because, as I said, I think skydiving is stupid. And I have a very good friend who does a lot of them, and she loves them, and good for her. But it's just like, I'd rather play tennis or do something where I'm learning a skill, not just hurtling. I know gravity exists. I do know. Falling takes no talent. It's its own thing. So I would like a pilot's license, though. And I will say I've flown a helicopter. That's very, very weird, because you pull back on the stick and you don't feel anything. In a plane, when you take off, you have the G's, right? You get pushed back in your seat. Helicopters, you got none of that. Next thing you know, you're floating above the ground and you're just gliding. So it's a very weird sensation. Yeah. But skydiving, not my cup of tea. Done it 3 times now. If you want to do it, do it. I know you don't want to do it, so don't do it. It's fine. You're not missing out on much.
Okay. That's fair. I'll take that.
I still want to throw you out just because you're petrified of it.
I know.
But that's just because I like torturing people, not because I think it's good for you.
I would have a heart attack on my way down.
You'll be fine.
I would die.
You'll be fine. We'll have the defib pads waiting for you down below. We'll have the ambulance service. Straight
to jail. Do you have a favorite TV show? There's a point.
Okay. I told you I like The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And I also like the medical drama or the comedy Scrubs. And that's only pertinent now because they're actually doing a reboot like 10 years after it finished. And all the characters are like a lot older. And I don't really know how they're doing a reboot, but Scrubs, Big Bang Theory, House, which was another medical drama, and then the BBC's Sherlock. And by the way, House was basically Sherlock in a medical setting. He was a diagnostician and he was assigned the cases no one else could figure out. And I love that. And because he was irascible, angry, everyone hated him. But he said, you don't need people to like you when you're right. Yeah. And I resonated with that far too much. Just like I told you in Sherlock when his older brother says, "I'm living in a world full of goldfish." I resonated with that far too much, and now I just sound like a horribly conceited person, but you asked, and it's fiction, so there you go.
Yeah, my follow-up question was gonna be, are there any characters in those shows that you relate to? Because I know what I would say.
Okay. It's look, I resonate with all the deeply damaged people.
Okay,
So, House, deeply damaged. Sherlock, damaged in every single way. Basically, all the characters that if they were in real life, you'd punch them in the face. But for some reason, on TV, when they're fictional, you're not supposed to love them, but everyone does.
yeah.
Like superheroes, couldn't stand Superman. He flies around, he's perfect. You don't have to be brave when you're invincible. I resonated with Batman, who's deeply screwed up, and Iron Man, who deeply screwed up, right? But I find them interesting because of the hero's journey they have to go through. And I find them interesting specifically because they're screwed up. And I think this is pertinent also to pageant girls when they go and interview and they pretend to be perfect. No one's buying it, and it's boring. And I'm not saying you go in there and you be a Batman and you beat people up and you become an alcoholic. That's of course not what I'm saying. But to be relatable, you need to show people sometimes I'm not perfect. I have struggles. I went through this. You don't have to lead with it all the time. I'm not talking about being a bleeding heart, like, oh, woe is me. But yeah, the characters I resonate with are always, you'd call them maybe anti-heroes, but the ones who are deeply, deeply flawed.
We're learning a lot about you. So,
Too
if you
much.
if you could travel to any place in the world regardless of budget or time, where would you go and why?
I've always wanted to go to is it the Maldives or the Maldives? Just because that looks, I love the beach and I love the sea. And this idea that you could be in a house on stilts and then you have a glass portal down below and you can actually see fish. That to me, I mean, you couldn't work there and you're not really surrounded by people, but if there's anywhere I'd want to go, it's probably there. On a more practical note, I'd love to be able to snap my fingers and go to an American pageant. I mean, like you live on the other side of the world. It'd be very cool just to, oh, yeah, let's catch up for coffee. Cool. Slightly impractical when it's a 24-hour flight, which
Yeah.
has an 83% chance of not happening because thanks, American Airlines. But yeah, Maldives, in terms of a holiday destination, in practicality, I'd really love to be back and forth between the states so I can see more. Because Miss Volunteer America, which I saw last year in person, that's really that is the first American pageant that I've seen in person, like
Yeah.
large scale one. And so I'd like to see more like that.
What's the next pageant that you would wanna see in the US?
Miss USA.
That's a
Miss
good choice.
USA, Miss America. If Miss Universe ever came back to the States, that one as well. But I
Oh,
think USA has to, because also I know Tom. It just makes sense. And I love being in that environment where people kind of know you sometimes. Like if I go to, like I went to Miss Volunteer America and I was recognized by some people. And it's just kind of nice, as narcissistic as that sounds, to know that the work you're doing actually is getting noticed somewhere. It's not just me
yeah.
yelling at the clouds. And in Australia, you don't get recognized because the industry is so small. And so I like that. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's like if I'd worked in any other industry, like I know people such as yourself, if it was in tennis, it'd be people who won the majors of tennis and they're almost household names. And so getting around my people, because I can't talk about pageants with normal people because they they have no idea what I'm talking about. I mean, at least tennis, you understand, oh, a person hits ball. Pageant, like, where do I begin? And by the time I explain everything, I would have forgotten what I want to say, and it's just not worth it. So, selfishly, I'd like to go around pageants just so I can talk shop. Like you see it all the time when I speak with you, or after the podcast, or on the podcast. It's just nice to be able to talk about this crazy little world sometimes.
What is the best, most random fact that you know?
Best, most random. When didn't you send me a video about the capybara or something? And I remembered then Big Bang Theory, and I think Sheldon said that's the largest rodent. In terms of other weird ones, I have perfect pitch. So
Oh,
if I
okay.
hear a note, I can tell you what note it is. And
Mhm.
my schoolmates found out about this. And so one of my friends at the time very kindly went around the school and would knock on a banister or knock on a railing and say, "Oh, what note is this? What note is that? What note is this?" And I'd give him the answer. And I was right. This is not a skill I learned, by the way. Apparently, some people just have it. I
Yeah.
started learning violin at the age of 2.5. That probably has something to do with it. But if you ever take me to a music recital and someone is out of tune, you may see me flinch or jump, and I promise you it's not me being mean. It is just a visceral reaction. It's
Yeah.
like the nails down the chalkboard. So I have the perfect pitch, which is great, especially playing the violin, because you need to know when you're in tune or not. But
Yeah.
if I hear something that's out of tune, like if someone is singing in a talent or they're playing violin in talent at whatever, and it's out of tune, I will jump out of my chair and like, I won't be able to control myself. It causes me physical pain. So how's that for random?
So basically, if Adrian is judging your pageant and there's a talent round, you better be on pitch.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of one person from Mississippi playing the violin. It was awful. It was so bad.
Mhm.
And the worst thing, it's on YouTube. And YouTube, in its wisdom, every time you watch that video, the next video it shows is of an absolute prodigy phenomenon at the age of 12 or 13, nailing that piece like no one's business. And they don't even sound like the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
hang on, that's what it's supposed to sound like? So yeah, don't get me in for talent because I don't want to be like, oh, like that literally not a word of a lie. Like you can ask anyone who knows me and they will know that. They're like, oh, this because that's mean. It's like, I can't help it. I mean, sometimes I am mean and I can help it, but that one is just a visceral, like, oh my God, can you play in tune? Please. That's not right. So that's my random fact.
Okay, so this was my favorite question from when you interviewed me. What is one job that you would never want to do and why?
Say pageant critic.
You are already a pageant critic.
I'm not a pageant
You've not
critic. I
branded
don't
yourself that way, but
no, one job I'd never want to try. Well, out okay, if I say okay, let's not talk about pageants for a sec. So I'm actually forced to think outside of the box.
Mhm.
I don't know that I'd want to be around death a lot.
Mhm.
Now that or loss. So I don't want to be probably in a hospital setting or veterinarian setting. It's really heartbreaking sometimes when people are so attached to their animals.
Yeah.
Or you see someone lose a child and it's so anything that had to do so anyone who working in healthcare, so nurse, doctor, ironically coming from my family,
Mhm.
or vet, because apparently when you're a vet, a lot of the time you're putting animals down because you don't take your animal to the vet normally if they're well. And I do know that mental health in the veterinarian industry is very, very bad,
Yeah.
precisely because you're always putting down little snow bunny or little Bambi or little snowball, and you just, lethal injection, lethal injection, lethal injection,
Mhm.
lunchtime, lethal injection, lethal injection, and that's your Monday. It's
Yeah.
not something I'd want to do.
Yeah. That's totally fair. So, this is my last question for you. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say?
Oh, so many things. How much younger? Give me an age.
I don't know how old you are.
No one needs to know that. But no, give me the age of when you want me to go back. Like, speak to myself at what age? Like, before going into high school, before deciding what to do in uni.
I'll say 15 to 18.
As cliche as it sounds, I would think some version of back yourself
Mm,
because back then, internet and social media was just beginning. We had no idea that this thing called AI was going to happen. And a lot of things that have happened in that period of time have made what I do possible.
mm,
But you never would have known it at the time. And so sometimes you're waiting for the world to catch up. Sometimes you have weird and wonderful thoughts and the world's just not ready for them yet. And so, yeah, sometimes you have an idea and it's just wrong or it's crazy and it won't work, but sometimes it's just not the right time.
Yeah.
And like doing this, doing what I do, what we do, it wouldn't have been possible back then. And also, a lot of people don't understand it sometimes, like especially if you want to do something on your own, if you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, people who have a 9 to 5 job won't understand it. And so don't get advice from them because they will just talk you out of it or fill your minds full of doubt. So if you want to ever get advice from someone on something, talk to someone who's done it before or who has gone down that path before you so they can actually give you proper advice. But I mean, things are changing so rapidly, especially now, that if I was to go back to then, I'd be like, I think you want to do more, you want to be more productive, but you also want to have more belief that things are going to change and your time will come. I think that's the thing, because interviewing back then wouldn't be a thing you could have done unless you had $1 million TV studio. Now anyone with a phone can do it. And so that's probably what I would say specifically for that time.
That's really good advice.
Thank you. I wish I'd taken it. Any other questions? I feel like you let me off easy.
I know. Is there anything else you want to share?
Not really. I mean, thank you for doing this. I mean, I guess the only other question is, what did you think when we sort of covered this before, but when I sat down to interview you and, you know, how did you find out about me?
You DM'd me and asked me to do an interview. And then
you did your research and gradually became horrified at what you'd agreed to. What were your first impressions?
So I scrolled through your Instagram a little bit and I was like, okay, he does a lot of pageant interviews, and I was seeing some highlights and I was like getting a feel for what the interview would maybe be like. And I just kind of went into our interview with no idea what it was going to be. I didn't realize it was probably, I want to say it was an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes long. And I didn't know that you were going to ask me such random questions in the end, because you have like a series of questions that you ask at the end of your pageant interviews that are really entertaining. Because I think after that initial first half where you're getting through a bio with somebody, they're still very much in pageant mode. And then you'll ask them like, what is one job you'd never want to do? And then they'll yap for 5 minutes about tangerine tarantulas, apparently. Sorry, guys.
No, you will. Normal people won't. Well, you will.
They might say something else funny. But either way, it takes you out of pageant mode. So I was kind of taken aback a little bit because nobody makes pageant interviews that entertaining. And I was like, okay, I'm forced to kind of come out of the pageant mold a little bit in this situation. And I was adapting as the interview was happening. And I was like, that was really fun.
This might be a controversial opinion, but I don't think anyone actually likes normal pageant interviews except the person who did them and the person who recorded them. I don't think anyone else outside of your family, because I think most of them, they're just so dry and boring, and you need to have some sort of entertainment value because you're not competing against other pageant girls. You're competing against everything that wants your attention.
Yeah.
And so unless you're entertaining, there's zero chance that anyone's going to watch it. Let me ask you this then. So that was then, and that was maybe what, it was back in, I don't know how long ago.
I think.
September?
I think September, roughly.
Okay. It was
maybe
about
August.
Call it 3 or 4, maybe 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And we stayed in touch. You went over, did your thing in the Philippines for Miss Earth.
I did.
Since then, we have talked far too much about all sorts of things. And we've started a podcast together with Peyton, Kristen, who's Miss Georgia Volunteer, and Morgan, who is the only person in the world who's crazier than I am, and she's a personal trainer.
Yeah.
How has your opinion or your thoughts about what I do, how has that changed over that time period? Because, you know, when I interviewed you, you probably didn't know much about what I do outside of my Instagram presence. But since then, obviously, you've probably gotten to know too much about me. So over that period, I'm curious to know how has your opinion changed, or what thoughts have you had about what I do?
I didn't know that you coached when you first interviewed me. And now that I've learned about how you coach and I've watched you coach people, I realize that you do that very differently than anybody else in the industry does. It is far more productive. And the contestants aren't just memorizing things and spitting them out. They're learning to actually make a point and learn interview skills that they can take with them for the rest of their lives. And it's not just for interviews, it's personal communication in general. And there's a lot of psychology behind that. And a lot of pageant coaches don't touch that at all. And that's where you personally start. So I'm very impressed with that. And that's something that I see every time we get on a call. And the other thing, I notice that there are things that many of us can't say about the industry, but you kind of have that leeway where you're at with the Pageant Project, where you can like say the weird thing, you know, or the thing that everybody's thinking about, but nobody wants to talk about because they're afraid they'll get themselves in trouble. So if you're looking for a space where we talk about pageantry honestly and how it could be improved and how contestants can benefit without sugarcoating or speaking to you through Pinterest quotes, this is the place.
I love it. Passive aggressive. Like you just post it up, but you don't say anything to it. And people are like, is this about so and so? And you're like, could be, maybe so, maybe not. Who knows? I'm just gonna leave it up there and be cryptic.
Yeah.
Final question. Let me ask you this. What's something that you think I should do more of in 2026 then with the Pageant Project? What's something or multiple things you'd like to see me doing more of with the Pageant Project?
I'd like to see you show your face more on your Instagram account and show us more of what you're doing every day with the Pageant Project, because like you talked about at the beginning, my mom said, the Pageant Project, is that Adrian? And I was like, yeah, that's Adrian. I just want to see more of you on there. So we remember that the Pageant Project is Adrian Kwan.
More of my
I know you're just so excited to film more of that, but yeah.
Well, do you mean like talking head videos, which I do every now and then, or do you mean like random photo of me with a wallaby in the background?
I mean, you could post that and we would think it's funny because I want to say the majority of your audience is American, right? And we don't have wallabies. So I got really excited to see that on your story today. But I would love to see more in-feed reels of like the talking head videos.
Okay. Yeah, and that's in the plan as well, because I realize that's what I need to do more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me interview you. What was that?
How do you feel? How are you feeling after doing the interview?
Oh, I'm chilling.
It wasn't bad, was it?
No, not at all.
You want to take my job?
I don't know. I've had a couple people DM me and ask me to interview them, pageant queens that want me to interview them because I'm working on my journalism degree, and they're like, we could do stuff for social media. I know one thing I'm going to start doing. If you guys have watched Pageants and Tangents at all, you might have seen Gianna Caloris, Miss Long Island, USA, currently filled in for me a few weeks ago because I was sick. And Gianna and I are going to start doing Instagram live videos while we're getting ready and talking about what we're up to in pageantry and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to be working on more talking head videos and things like that myself too.
Sounds good. Gianna was a good sub, by the way.
She's hilarious.
He's a good type. All right. Well, let's leave it there. And thanks again for doing this, Haley.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me interview you.